Thursday was a big day for the 49ers, just like this is a big ride right by Brock Purdy at the Korean Center in San Francisco. Good timing here for the start of the show. Why was Thursday a big day? Well, it was the day that saw Fred Warner officially sign his contract extension with the 49ers just a couple days after Brock Purdy signed his. Fitting culmination to a busy offseason of work for the 49ers. Now they've got to transition to the on-field work, and OTAs, well, they'll be a big part of that next week. But I think that now that the business side of things has culminated, it's a really good time to step back and reflect on everything that has happened. From firing Nick Sorensen, the defensive coordinator in 2024, and Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator who had been on board for 3 years, to hiring Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer, to parting ways with several popular players, to bringing in a massive new draft class. I mean, there have been a lot of ebbs and flows of excitement and frustration for fans in this 49ers offseason. So I think that now's the perfect time to go back through all of them to see where the 49ers are at point B, which seems to be really different from point A. And the big question for everybody is, are they further or closer to winning a Super Bowl? All they can do in any given offseason is improve their trajectory and improve their positioning from where they left off at the end of the 2024 season. So everything that the 49ers have done in this offseason, I've tried to frame around the fact that they had some major issues in 2024. And you guys probably know the drill by this point. Bad run defense, terrible special teams, poor separation around Brock Purdy. I thought that the 49ers needed something a little bit more, especially out of their interior offensive line in pass protection. And they needed a little bit more from their offensive line and from their running backs, who obviously saw a lot of injuries last year in rushing efficiency because everything's tied together. That's 5 major problems that I just listed. And I think that the work that the 49ers did this offseason, despite the fact that it might have been confusing to people over the course of especially the start of things in February and March, I think the work that they did this offseason was directly targeted at improving those 5 weaknesses. So we start with the obvious candidates at the beginning. Firing Nick Sorensen, the defensive coordinator, and firing Brian Schneider, the special teams coordinator. You had a defense that slid big time to end last season. They weren't ready, and Kyle Shanahan made this really clear when he described the problems that he had with the defense last year. They weren't ready to absorb the injuries that they did see. And it just so happens that the last time the 49ers had suffered mass injury chaos on the defensive side of the ball prior to 2024 had been 2020. Yet they were able to stay afloat in 2020 even without Nick Bosa. The coordinator that year was Robert Saleh. He left to the New York Jets for 2021. The Jets obviously fired Saleh early in 2024, so he was available again. And one of Kyle Shanahan's biggest frustrations was that the defense couldn't adapt even despite its injuries in 2024. So with Saleh available again, with the very inexperienced Nick Sorensen on board as that defensive coordinator for a year, it made a lot of sense for the 49ers to move on and to bring the original architect of their current defense back. That was the big early change of the season. And now the 49ers, funny enough, are even set to bring back personnel man Ethan Waugh, who had been in their front office for a long time, been in their scouting department for even longer. That dated back all the way to the Trent Baalke era or even before then. But Ethan Waugh had been the interim GM of Jacksonville, took that job after Trent Baalke was let go. And under Ethan Waugh's watch, the Jaguars hired Liam Cohn and didn't hire Robert Saleh. And I find it all very ironic because Ethan Waugh is now going to be returning to the 49ers after he indirectly helped them re-land Robert Saleh. We remember all that drama that all came down in that month of February when the 49ers, or maybe even January, that was right after the regular season when the 49ers were hoping that their old defensive coordinator would return. He did indeed return, and now Ethan Waugh will return. And also, funny enough, the new Jacksonville front office with James Gladstone, the former Rams front office man, and now with Liam Cohn, their new head coach, but the Jags have provided a model of sorts for the 49ers to operate off of, because it's all based on the Rams model of the youth movement, renovating the team. And that's what the 49ers had to do for Saleh, and that's what they had to do for Brant Boyer, the new special teams coordinator who came over from the Jets. So as soon as the 49ers made those changes at the top of their hierarchy, they embarked on the arduous process of renovating their roster. They parted ways with Talanoa Hufanga, with Dre Greenlaw, with Javon Hargrave, with Malik Collins, with Leonard Floyd, all veterans who had starting positions with this football team last season. Now, I know that Dre Greenlaw didn't play a whole lot, and a lot of those guys didn't play a whole lot. Javon Hargrave saw much of his availability compromised by injury in this past season. Talanoa Hufanga, too, as he saw some complications and some different ailments coming off of the ACL tear in 2023. By and large, the 49ers went on a ruthless cost efficiency purge during free agency. I was talking to my friend a little bit earlier today, and he had some questions about what the 49ers modus operandi was over the course of this offseason as we make our way up Pacific Heights. This is a new route today, by the way, down Webster Street. We're going to go over Broadway. We're going to have a couple nice views here in San Francisco as this all continues. But, I said that the modus operandi is actually simple for San Francisco. They want to maintain their A-list core, and they're very willing to pay for star power, because star power is what makes a difference in the NFL. But they're also cognizant of the fact that rosters in the NFL have 53 players on them, and nobody in the history of the league, even before the salary cap existed, was able to fit 53 stars on a roster. So there's going to be a vast majority of your list that has to come from a more unassuming place. You can't just dip into the superstar well for the entire roster. And the 49ers had to more strictly enforce the delineation between A-list payments and B-list cost efficiency over the course of this offseason. So players like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, and Leonard Floyd, they decided that they weren't quite worthy of that A-list core. Now, the closest to being worthy was Dre Greenlaw, but the lack of availability made it such that the 49ers weren't willing to invest a massive level of money in his services. If they had been willing to do that, they would have come to agreement with Dre Greenlaw much sooner than he came to agreement with the Denver Broncos. So the 49ers obviously chose the path of youth, and I think most importantly, they chose the path of cost efficiency. They didn't want to pay $10 million a year for players like Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd when they considered them to be closer to merely average players than they were to superstars. Again, paying superstars, finding cost efficiency elsewhere is the 49ers formula, and it's been a tried and true formula under the salary cap in the NFL. It was hard for fans to process this in March because the 49ers were only seeing the attrition part of this to begin free agency. They wouldn't be experiencing the addition part of it until about a month later during the NFL draft. Now, there were a couple nice reprieves for fans over the course of this time. One was Kyle Juszczyk. It looked like he was gone, but then the 49ers were able to re-sign him. When after about 4 or 5 days of free agency, Kyle Juszczyk determined that the 49ers offer and the 49ers situation would be the best for his future. That obviously was on the offensive side of the ball, not the defensive side of the ball, where the 49ers had much more stringent cost efficiency measures. That's because the defense was, quite frankly, terrible to close the 2024 season, while the offense stayed afloat for the 49ers. So in totality, they've tried to maintain offensive continuity while simultaneously making sure that things are tailored around Brock Purdy. I think that was a big part of Deebo Samuel's departure for the 49ers. San Francisco looking to improve separation, looking to improve the way that they beat man coverage so that the table is better set for Brock Purdy. But in general, the offense has, and especially if you look at the depth chart, not a lot of green on that depth chart as far as new rookie additions. The offense has maintain consistency, while it's the defense, and especially the front seven, where the 49ers saw all those tough games in run defense last year. The defense has seen the biggest renovation. The NFL draft is where the addition started to happen for the 49ers. Beginning with Michael Williams, the defensive lineman out of Georgia, moving to Alfred Collins in the second round. He's a defensive tackle out of Texas, extremely explosive. The way that he covers ground with his 6'5", 6'6" frame truly is something that I think can fit in the 49ers' wide nine, where those defensive linemen are lined up further apart than they are in most schemes. There's a lot more ground to cover. That athletic burst is absolutely necessary. Moving on to somebody like C.J. West. He's a fourth-round pick. Indiana defensive tackle. One technique should pair well skill set-wise with somebody like Alfred Collins. Nick Martin, he might be lighter than Dre Greenlaw, but the 49ers think that he plays a brand of football that's just as vicious. And somebody like Upton Stout, well, they remember the Shark in K'Wan Williams. And K'Wan Williams, well, this is like a more buffed up version of K'Wan Williams. 49ers think they could bring even more viciousness to their defense with somebody like Upton Stout out of the University of Western Kentucky. We just passed Amarena, one of my favorite Italian restaurants in San Francisco. Making our way up Russian Hill. We're almost there as I'm going through this draft class. 5 of the players in this draft class at the very top of it were defensive players. The 49ers, for the first time since 1981, spent their first 5 picks on defensive players, which just gives you an idea of the level of renovation that the 49ers undertook on that side of the football. Shortly after the draft is when the big A-list re-signings began to happen. It was only a few days after that George Kittle was re-signed, after some drama in the media, which obviously did not portray that situation correctly. Shortly after Kittle, Brock Purdy signed his mega deal, which was the biggest order of business of the 49ers offseason. And then Fred Warner agreed to the contract that he signed at the end of this week. All of that conducted within the course of a month, and all of that emphatically announced that the theory that we had about the 49ers offseason formula was correct. They actually wanted to reinforce the A-list core, all while renovating the B-list margins of this football team. And they did so successfully at this point. Now we're going to have to see how these guys play on the field, and that obviously is going to be hugely dependent on how these draft picks acclimate to the NFL level. But on paper, the 49ers did what they set out to do, and that was reinforce the foundational pillars of this football team, all while making it younger across the board. They actually ended 2024 as the oldest team in football. Now, of course, the big question is, will this work for the 49ers? Are they going to be a team that does get better from the 6-11 finish in 2024? And my simple answer to this question is, it's going to be really, really hard for the 49ers to get worse at some of the problem areas that I listed at the start of the offseason. The run defense, the separation, the injuries. I mean, that was another big area of weakness for San Francisco. They were one of the most injured teams. They were an exhausted team. And that's why we look at this at several different layers. A, they've got a longer offseason. They have more time to rejuvenate. Brock Purdy even said the other day that he feels a re-energized vibe around the building, and I think the extra rest can help the 49ers with their injury issues. But then there's just the reality of a younger roster, of a hungrier roster, of a team that's refocused and ready to go for this season. And the 49ers have done their best to build that over the course of this 2025 offseason. But it truly will be hard to get worse than the number 32 separation score, than the number 29 run defense score, than the number 32 special teams score. Nowhere to go but up. And the 49ers have spent the past few months acquiring the raw materials necessary to expect significant improvement. But now they have to make that improvement happen. It's time for this team to swing into OTA and training camp mode where it will be determined just how much better they'll be in 2025 than they were in 2024.